More than half of all alcohol industry profits come from people who are clinically addicted to alcohol. Let that sink in. Not a small portion of their profits, but over half of all their profits. These aren't casual drinkers. It's not the guy with the beer at the barbecue. I'm talking alcoholics. People who are destroying their health, their marriages, their families, and big alcohol depends on them. They actually need them. Their business model doesn't work without a large, captive population of people who can't stop drinking. So here's the question I had to ask myself. Was I invested in that? Would I personally start a business or invest in a business where I knew that without a group of people being addicted to something that harms them, I couldn't turn a profit? The answer was yes. I was invested in this. And no, I wouldn't start that kind of business. And these companies may be in your portfolio as well. In my last video, I told you about the moment I realized I was funding the very things my faith stands against. That my own investment portfolio was financially backing industries I believe were destroying families. But in this video, I'm focusing on the alcohol industry. We're going to cover specific companies, the brands you recognize, the ones that you may currently be invested in, and probably have been for years unknowingly. And I pray that by the end of this video, when you examine the evidence, you're going to experience the same thing I felt when I first looked into this, a change of heart. Let me give you a number that changed my view on alcohol companies when I heard it. The Washington Post wrote an article on American drinking habits based on a book written by Philip J. Cook titled Paying the Tab. And they found that the top 10% of adult drinkers in this country, that's about 24 million people, consume on average 74 drinks per week. Let that sink in, 74 drinks per week. That's the equivalent of 4.5 bottles of Jack Daniels, 18 bottles of wine, or 3 24-pack cases of beer every single week. Take a look at this graphic. It's going to give you a pretty descriptive picture of what that looks like. I also pulled up the data used in this book to see whether the veracity of the claims being made are accurate. Here, we can see that these results were published in the American Journal of Preventive Medicine. And here's why that number matters for investors. That top 10% of drinkers accounts for well over half of all alcohol consumed in the United States in any given year, which means the business model of big alcohol isn't built on the person who has a beer or a glass of wine or two at dinner on a Friday night. It's built on addiction. It depends on it. The survival of these companies requires a large, captive population of people who cannot stop drinking. Now, here's a question worth reflecting on. Do you want to financially participate in that? I want to be careful here because I know this is a topic where Christians land in different places, and that's okay. As a Christian, I actually believe it's okay to have a drink, and occasionally I do have a drink. The Bible doesn't say a glass of wine is a sin. In fact, Jesus turned water into wine. Paul tells Timothy to drink a little wine for his stomach. So we're not going to overcorrect into prohibition theology. But here's what Scripture is clear about. Drunkenness is not okay. Ephesians 5:18 tells us, do not get drunk with wine, for this is debauchery. Proverbs 20 verse 1. Wine is a mocker, strong drink is raging, and whoever is led astray by it is not wise. And Romans 14:21 says, it is good not to eat meat or drink wine or do anything that causes your brother to stumble. Most faith-based investment frameworks aren't calling for a ban on alcohol. The concern isn't moderate consumption. It's systematic profit from a behavior that Scripture warns against. These large-scale producers don't survive on moderate consumers. They survive on addiction, on abuse, on broken families. And when you hold their stock, you share in that profit. So let's talk about what this actually looks like in a portfolio. Let me go over some of the names that you might be familiar with. Anheuser-Busch InBev, It's traded on the New York Stock Exchange under symbol BUD. It's the largest beer producer in the world, with brands like Bud Light, Stella Artois, and Corona internationally. Molson Coors, it's traded on the New York Stock Exchange under the symbol TAP, T-A-P, with brands like Coors Light, Miller Lite, and Blue Moon. The Boston Beer Company, it's traded on the NYSE under the symbol SAM, with brands like Samuel Adams, Truly Hard Seltzer, Twisted Tea, Angry Orchard. Constellation Brands, it's traded on the NYSE under the symbol STZ. They have the US rights to Corona and Modelo, Robert Mondavi, Kim Crawford, beer, wine, and spirits. Brown-Forman, traded on the NYSE, symbol BF.B. They sell Jack Daniels, Woodford Reserve, Old Forester. And finally, Diageo, also traded on the NYSE, symbol DEO. They sell Johnny Walker, Smirnoff, Guinness, Captain Morgan. These are all publicly traded companies. Their revenues, their business models, their dependence on heavy consumers, it's all in their annual reports. The question isn't whether this is true or not. The question is whether, now that you know the facts, you're going to actually do something about it. When I show clients this list, when I pull up the fund holdings and start naming the companies, the reaction is almost always the same. First, surprise, followed by a kind of quiet discomfort and disbelief. It's pretty much the same reaction I had when I learned about this. Because these aren't obscure stocks. They're in the S&P 500. They're in your target date retirement fund. They've been compounding inside your IRA for years. And we've been collecting dividends from these companies whose survival depends on people who can't say no to another drink. I'm not here to accuse you. I'm guilty of profiting from these same investments. I didn't know about this until about 2 years ago. But now you know it. And together as believers who want to see positive change affected in this world, we can collectively make a difference. Kingdom Advisors reports that Christians hold an estimated 49.7% of the stocks, bonds, and mutual fund investments in this country today, or $22.4 trillion in public market investments. Think about the power that we have collectively to not supply these companies with the capital that the Lord has entrusted us to steward over. Let's assume that that number is overestimated and that it's only half that number. That's still $11 trillion. These companies' access to capital would dry up pretty quickly. Their stocks would not only lose a ton of current owners, but they would also lose a large portion of future buyers. Many of us have employer plans through 401ks or 403bs with limited investment selections, which may result in an imperfect alignment of our portfolios with our values. But that doesn't mean we shouldn't try to align our investments to our faith's values whenever we can. Do you want to align your investments with your values? If you want to go deeper on this, I've put together a free resource called Faithful and Funded. It covers all 6 of these categories with a theological grounding and the practical investment framework. The link is in the description. In the next video in this series, we're going to be talking about tobacco and cannabis, and I'm going to show you some connections between these industries and mainstream companies you'd never expect to be on this list. I'm Brian with Palo Seco Wealth Management, and I'll see you on the next one.